Hey there, you just clicked on First Down Punts. Nice move. This is a podcast about football and how it relates to fantasy football. Hope you like what you hear. We're going to get this thing started. Let's get crazy. And welcome in, everyone, to another episode of First Down Punts. I'm your host, Coach Chris. Today, we're going to be going over the Week 6 injury news and waiver moves to make for Week 7. Before we get into that, let's get into a couple things of note in the NFL news. Tennessee Titans fired their head coach Brian Callahan yesterday and are replacing him with Mike McCoy, former head coach. He was I believe, an offensive assistant for the Titans this year, but he is being promoted to head coach. Callahan is out. I'm waiting to see what happens with Callahan's dad, who's the offensive line coach there, Bill Callahan, former head coach of a handful of teams at college and pro. I'm just interested to see if he's going to stick around, if they're going to end up letting him go too. Another Brian Branch, started a fight after the Chiefs game. Lions safety Brian Branch started a fight after the Chiefs game with Juju Smith-Schuster and is being suspended for one game, which means on top of missing 5 out of their top 6 defensive backs, the Lions will also be missing their starting safety due to a dumbass decision. All you're asking is do is get suspended. Anyways, Rashee Rice coming back for the Kansas City Chiefs, who just beat the Lions, moved to 3-3. Lions dropped to 4-2. Rashee Rice's his suspension is over, and he will be returning to the field promptly. Brandon Ayuk, 49ers wide receiver, came out. He is still weeks away, but George Kittle could be back this week. They're going to see if they can get him practicing. Possible he doesn't play this week, actually comes back week 8, but something to pay attention to as the week goes on. For fantasy players, coaches are lying again, as usual, per usual. Comes out Sunday morning. Bam Knight's going to be the starter for Arizona, and Hassan Haskins going to be the lead back for the Chargers. Neither of those things was really true. Bam Knight, I believe, actually got the first snap. I would have to go back. I don't even remember if he got the first snap. And him and Michael Carter basically split carries. Amari DiMercado played a little bit, but ended up getting injured. We'll get into that here in a minute. And then on the Chargers side, Hassan Haskins was supposed to be the lead back, and Kamani Vidal came out and had over 100 yards rushing. So, got to love when coaches lie to you. I don't know why they're mad at fantasy football. It just brings more fans to football. But at the end of the day, that's what you got to deal with when you're getting these stupid reports in the morning sometime. Obviously, you want to know injury reports, but anything that comes to a coach giving up strategy, it's hard to believe anything that comes out. So, let's get into these injuries, which there are a lot of them. Starting with the number one linebacker in football, Fred Warner broke and dislocated a lot in his ankle / foot. He dislocated his ankles, pointing the wrong direction, kind of like the Tyreek Hill, just with his foot instead of his whole bottom half of his leg. Not good. Going on IR, got carted off with a cast on, and is out for the season. So, Puka Nacua, here's a big one. He's day-to-day with a ankle injury. He's already questionable for Week 7. McVay came out and said he's not sure if he'll be able to play Week 7. We'll get into the waiver impact of that, but just something to pay attention to. Emeka Egbuka. Side note, this was the week of injuries for wide receivers and ankle injuries at that. But Emeka Egbuka hurt his hamstring. He is out, probably going to be out a couple of weeks. Mike Evans could be back this week, but Chris Godwin has basically already been ruled out for Week 7. So, obviously, there's some waiver ads there in Tampa Bay. Garrett Wilson has a hip injury. Sounds like he could be out a couple weeks. He came down hard on a catch, and then he kind of limped off. The Jets are a disaster right now as it is, but it's not going to help if Garrett Wilson's not playing. So, like I said, I believe he's going to be out a couple weeks. We'll get more news as the week comes on and give you an update later on in one of our other videos. Calvin Ridley left this game with a hamstring with one catch for 18 yards. I had to start Calvin Ridley this week. That's 6 straight weeks with a fucking injury, man. Are you kidding me? Week 1, George Kittle. Week 2, Jaden Daniels at the end of the game. Week 3, Terry McLaurin. Week 4, Tyreek Hill. Week 5, Spencer Schrader. Week 6, Calvin Ridley. I have sustained an injury in my home league every single week that's cost me points, man, and it's driving me insane. If you're a fantasy football player, you're probably dealing with a lot of the same. I've seen some of these teams that lost Burrow, Tyreek Hill, all these guys by week 3, week 4. trust me, we're all in the same boat, man, and we're all in some hurting positions right now. Clearly, my home league not doing that great. The other leagues I'm in, I'm doing fine. I'm 4-2 in like 4 of them, and 3-3 in another. But my home league is the one that it's your home league. You always care about it most, and that's what it's. Right now, my team is beat up, and I am struggling to say the least. So, wish me luck going the rest of the season because it's been tough so far. But these injuries, as I said, Marvin Harrison Jr. left this game with a concussion. After he has his couple good weeks, you try to trust him, throw in your lineup, and he leaves with an injury. Mario DiMercato, he had the huge injury, or the huge mishap last week by dropping the ball going into the end zone. He gets back out on the field, but leaves with an ankle injury. So that'll be interesting to see. And that goes along with that Bam Knight, Michael Carter thing there in Arizona. DiMercato was the third back. He ends up getting injured. So it's kind of shrunk the opportunities down to those two players right now. So we'll get into that when we get into waivers. But Quentin Johnston, some things that people didn't end up playing, getting ruled out. Quentin Johnston with a hamstring. He was kind of a late addition. It almost felt like to the injury report and on Friday, and then ends up not being able to play. I think he was limited most of the days last week. I'd have to go back and actually check the reports, but it was just like I wouldn't expect him to miss the game. He's on my team too, so there's another injury for you on my home league. Like I said, I'm just taking blows, man. But he ends up missing the game. So Ladd has a great day. Keenan Allen didn't really do much. Matt Milano, linebacker for the Bills, he's out with a pectoral. He's probably out till after their bye. They're on a bye this week after losing the last 2 games. Kyler Murray did not play with a foot injury. We talked about that in our injury stuff and a couple other videos last week. I was calling it a foot concussion. It sounds like he does have an actual foot injury, so he may not play. Like I said, they think it could be a couple-week injury. So Jacoby Brissett, he's our waiver guy we'll talk about. Marion Hampton, he's going to be longer than the 4 weeks that IR is allotted, so he could be out a good 5 or 6, maybe 7 weeks. And it's something that you have to consider moving forward. Maybe you want to trade him in fantasy. Maybe you have an IR spot and can put him in there and just leave him in there and deal with that. And when he comes back, great. But definitely something that news came out. I wanted to make sure I remember that. Back to this week's injuries, David Njoku left the game with a knee injury. Obviously, that helps Harold Fannin. Mike Gesicki left this game with a pectoral injury. He's going to miss some time, is what the coach said, which I imagine is going to be a good 3-4 weeks probably. That's generally a miss some time range. Trey Hendrickson also for the Bengals. He had a back injury. He did not return, but they said he's questionable. It sounds like he's going to be okay. Could possibly miss the Thursday night game. They got a quick turnaround, but probably back for week 8. Anthony Richardson and Charvarius Ward, the Colts players. Anthony Richardson, both of these players were hurt in pregame warmups. Anthony Richardson apparently hurt his orbital bone with a stretching band. I think his time in India is about up because when you're getting hurt just stretching out in pre-games, that is not a good sign when your biggest problem has been injuries. It's definitely something that, like when the first report first came out, Anthony Richardson, inactive, emergency third quarterback, whatever they listed him as, I was like, oh, Anthony Richardson might be getting traded. Maybe the Raiders or somebody's going to get him. And then like 10 minutes later, it comes out that he's got an orbital bone injury and he was hurt in pregame warmups. And it was one of these, oh no, that whole meme thing, just slap your head. It's like, are you kidding me? And then Charvarius Ward suffered a concussion in pregame warmups for the Colts, ran into another player, got banged up, and ended up being ruled out for the game. Probably going to be out next week as well. Concussions generally, they cost you a game or two. So something to pay attention to with that Colts defense. Deebo Samuel was questionable coming into Monday night with a heel injury. I'm sure he'll be limited this week, so something to keep an eye on. Terry McLaurin still not back this week. Could possibly be back week 7, but we got to get him on the practice field first before we know if he's going to play or not. Jake Matthews, tackle for the Falcons, left that game on Monday night with an ankle injury. Didn't seem to affect Bijan Robinson's ability to run. I told you the Bills could be ran on. And Atlanta comes away with a victory in that game by running all over them and Drake London being the only receiver to catch passes. Josh Palmer also left that game for the Bills with an ankle injury. So that wide receiver core is kind of getting narrowed out and could be beneficial for fantasy. Noah Sewell in the Bears game, Commanders game. Noah Sewell, the linebacker for the Bears, he ends up leaving the game with a concussion. DJ Moore has a groin injury. He had to stay overnight in the hospital. He left in an ambulance. It sounded much more serious than what it ends up becoming. He is day-to-day right now with a groin injury, but something to pay attention to and could possibly affect your waiver wire. Ronnie Stanley, tackle for the Ravens, left the game again with an ankle injury. I'm not sure if that's because they were down 17-3 or if because he was actually, still dealing with the injury. He's been fighting through it. So I'm not sure if it was just, hey, let's get him out. We're not going to win this game. Or if he actually suffered the injury. I still got to go back and see the play where he left and see what happened there. But I just wanted to get that out, the news that Ronnie Stanley left the game again with an ankle. Another tackle, Jack Conklin, the right tackle for the Browns, left the game with a concussion. So the Browns offense, that might be part of why they threw the ball 56 or dropped back 56 times and Quinshon Judkins didn't get as many rushes. But definitely something to talk about when we go over to review week 5. Dontavian Wicks. He was kind of a sleeper, sneaky start for me. Ends up leaving his game hurt again, surprise, surprise, with an ankle injury, another ankle. Blake Corum, running back for the Rams, ankle injury. These are all things that, like I said, there's a ton of ankles, ton of receivers that got banged up this week. Darius Slay, corner for the Pittsburgh Steelers, has a shoulder injury. He left the game, did not return. Juwan Jennings, it came out, he's playing with, I think it was 5 broken ribs. So he's somebody that's going to be limited in practice, possibly miss Wednesdays and then limited Thursdays and Fridays, questionable every week as he tries to fight through it and heal up without getting re-injured. Bucks right guard, Luke Haggard. So the Bucks already missing offensive linemen, suffer another offensive line injury. He's got a shoulder injury, the right guard does, and not sure if he's going to be able to come back this week. So we're waiting for more reports on that. And then the final injury we got so far is the Titans rookie linebacker, Oladejo. I think he was out of UCLA. He has a calf injury, so that Titans defense gets a little banged up when they've been playing tough, but they can't really afford to be losing players, especially some stud pass rusher, linebacker / defensive end. And hopefully he can get back pretty soon. We're moving to our waivers after that list of injury players. We'll get into these waivers now. We'll try to turn around and get some positive news for you because that was a list and a half. Starting with quarterbacks that I think you should be picking up. Aaron Rodgers plays Cincinnati on Thursday. Definitely a good matchup for him and DK Metcalf. Hopefully Calvin Austin can get back. He wasn't back in week 6, but he's got to get back to practice first. I don't think he practiced at all last week, so he's got to do that first before they can talk about playing him. But in the meantime, Ben Skoronix and the tight ends, Darnell Washington actually had a good game, that big monster there in Pittsburgh. Freiermuth is always a possible pickup, but I think Rodgers could have a good game against Cincinnati and somebody worthy of picking up if he got dropped in the buy and they didn't really want to start him this past week. He could be out there on your waivers for those shallow leagues. Deeper leagues, you're looking at guys like Joe Flacco. He plays Pittsburgh, the Jets, and in Chicago. Pittsburgh's missing Darius Slay. They don't have Minka Fitzpatrick. They still got Ramsey, but they got some holes back there on that back end. I'm sure Ramsey will be playing Metcalf. So it's possible that Jaylen Warren, Freiermuth, Jonnu Smith, those guys are the ones that are actually benefiting. Justin Fields, I know you might be going, you got to be kidding me, right? Trust me, he's getting dropped in most leagues. And if that's the case, understand he plays Carolina, Cincinnati over the next 2 weeks. Probably no Garrett Wilson, but the running capability is still there. Mason Taylor becomes a very, very interesting option to pick up. And Arian Smith, Josh Reynolds. Reynolds actually had a few catches this game, which was you like to see because they needed to get him involved. The bigger problem with him is their offensive coordinator, Tanner Engstrand. He's got Fields playing a drop back position. I'm not saying run out and get Fields. I'm just saying he's got some good matchups the next 2 weeks. And if you're desperate for a quarterback, you got Lamar on a bye or Josh Allen on a bye. You ain't had a backup in those single QB leagues. Maybe Fields is a guy you can pick up. Or Jacoby Brissett. Brissett went for 320, 2 touchdowns and a pick, and 19 rushing yards for the Cardinals this week, replacing Kyler Murray. If Murray is out again, Brissett could definitely be a player you might be able to throw in there in an emergency start. But definitely something interesting. Flacco is probably the more interesting one just because of the weapons he has. Like I said, he went for 219 and 2 touchdowns in his first game, had, 3 days to prepare before the game. If Flacco can stay upright, they can keep him upright, then great. But they're getting – I don't remember if Lucas Patrick got back this week for the Bengals or if he'll be back. I think he's coming back this week. Getting into running backs, the big name, obviously, we talk about Kamani Vidal, filling in for Amari Hampton. Like I said, they said Haskins was going to be the lead back. There wasn't a bit of truth to that. Kamani Vidal is the lead back there right now. Came out, had a great day, over 100 yards rushing, couple of catches, and definitely the guy you're going to be picking up off of waivers if possible. The next guy I think I want to talk about is Woody Marks for Houston. He went into a bye after a bad game. Chubb had the better game 2 weeks ago. Then they had their bye week. Woody Marks might have got dropped, so he's somebody you want to go out there and look for and pick up if you can. As far as the Cardinals go, with Trey Benson being on IR, James Conner out for the year, Michael Carter had a good game. Then it comes out Bam Knight's going to start this week. And not that Michael Carter had a real super efficient game 2 weeks ago, but he had a solid game, got a touchdown and all that. Bam Knight also got a touchdown late on a pretty good run. So I guess they thought Bam Knight was going to be the better starter. Comes out, they ended up basically splitting the opportunities there for Arizona. I think both of them are worthy of an emergency start this upcoming week because I think both of them are going to be involved. And with DeMercado getting banged up as well, it's just them two. So either one of these guys, Michael Carter, Bam Knight, I would probably still lean Michael Carter just because I think he is the better back. Bam Knight's got a little more big play potential, but Carter's probably more built for the beating. So something to think about. Justice Hill for the Ravens. Justice Hill is always going to be a guy that I'm willing to throw in there in a bye week or injury filler because if the Ravens get down, he becomes even more valuable. But he's always involved, gets a handful of carries, a couple catches every game, and he's still a talented player that could take one to the house at any moment if he hits a hole. So Jeremy McNichols, the Commanders running back, Rodriguez got one play or one carry. I forget what it was. One of something. He didn't have much. He wasn't involved. And he was already questionable coming into the game and ended up playing, but not playing a lot. McNichols kind of played that pass roll down for them. So he's a guy you might want to think about picking up in case something happens to Bill. And with Rodriguez not really playing, he's kind of the number two right now. It's going to be him and Krosky Merritt. And then Tajay Spears, I'm going to keep mentioning him because I like Spears. I always have. With a new coach, they may be trying to do a little more split backfield with him and Pollard. Maybe not. We're going to find out what's going on. But Spears is a guy who got involved a little bit more this week. And I can see that continuing to I could continue to see him getting more opportunities going forward because although I like Tony Pollard, he's not a super flashy player. He's not a guy that's a huge big play guy. Spears is that receiving back that could possibly get in open space and maybe break one. So he's a guy I'm always interested in. And then Jaden Blue, we talked about him last week. Miles Sanders is out on IR, out for the season. So Jaden Blue, although not getting a lot of opportunities there behind Javonte Williams, is still like an insurance back that you might want to pick up. And then the last running back, Caleb Johnson. Got a little involved this past week coming out of the bye. Him and Gainwell kind of split those backfield opportunities behind Jaylen Warren. And I still like Caleb Johnson as a running back. I still like him as a prospect coming into the NFL. And I still think he's someone that you might want to throw on the end of your bench in the deeper leagues, Superflex leagues, where it's like, hey, man, if anything happens to Warren or Gainwell, maybe Caleb Johnson can actually get involved. Or over the course of the season, he just continues to get more and more involved and get into that number two role with Jaylen Warren and take the load off of Jaylen Warren. So something to consider. Wide receivers this week. The number one receiver for me this week on waivers is Luther Burden, mainly because I believe he is going to get more and more involved over the course of the season. You keep seeing it. And with DJ Moore having a groin injury now, I'm definitely more interested. I thought Moore could – I've said it before, I think Moore could get traded. Even with that contract, the Bears might be able to eat that space over the next couple of years with the rookie quarterback contract still happening, and they could trade DJ Moore. But right now with a groin injury, you don't know if he's going to play this week. Luther Burden becomes an immediate add and could have that potential long-term value that you're looking for. Sterling Shepard and Cameron Johnson and Tez Johnson, the Bucs wide receivers. Evans might not be back. Godwin's basically ruled out. Egbuka's basically ruled out with a hamstring injury. If I'm picking one of the Bucs receivers, it's probably Cam Johnson, man. He was the most productive. I know Tez Johnson got the touchdown, but opportunity-wise, Cameron Johnson had the most. Sterling Shepard's the vet. that you know is probably going to get 3 or 4 catches, definitely almost every game that he gets to play in a good amount of snaps, and he can always take one around the edge on an end around or something, or on a wide receiver screen. He could take one to the house. So they're all interesting. They're all worthy of a dart throw and see what happens. Like I said, Cameron Johnson might be the one that I would pick up personally. So Jordan Whittington, with Puka Nacua getting banged up, I know that he's day to day, but if he's out, Whittington was the immediate benefactor. He got more and more involved over the course of the game. Once Puka went out, he was the next guy in. But Tutu Atwell also missed this game. If Tutu Atwell is back, it becomes a little more interesting on who's going to be that secondary guy to Devontae Adams if Puka Nacua misses. Could end up being one of the tight ends. But Jordan Whittington, preseason hype from, what was it, last year? He's a guy that's worthy of an ad right now. Kendrick Bourne, Demarcus Robinson. Bourne had another 100-yard game there for the Niners. Jennings is banged up. We talked about it. Not sure if Ricky Pearsall is going to be back this week or not. So Kendrick Bourne's the first ad from the San Francisco 49ers, and I would probably put him right there by Luther Burden as the number 2 guy to add. Demarcus Robinson, he'd be further down on the list of ads. But as I said, if Jennings is banged up, he's going to be limited all week, I'm sure, in practice, and be questionable coming into the game. Could possibly miss. It all depends on how practice goes. I'm sure he's in a non-contact injury, but Demarcus Robinson is still a guy that's worthy of a ad in deeper leagues. Next guy, Kayshon Boutte, New England Patriots wide receiver, had a nice touchdown this week. He's a guy that's always worthy of an ad and during bye weeks and stuff, because he is probably the most talented receiver there besides Diggs, and maybe even more than Diggs with his age and everything. But and then Demario Pop Douglas, the other receiver there in New England, they're both worthy of an ad in deeper leagues and for bye week fillers, especially over the next couple of weeks where we got a lot of buys coming into this week, week 7 and week 8. So guys that are worthy of start, I would add Boutte first, and then Demario Douglas would be my secondary there in New England. And LIL'JORDAN Humphrey, we talked about him on our video for the week 6 start sits for the rest of the games after the Thursday night game. He had a real big day for Thursday night for the Giants. Ends up getting a touchdown, activated before the game. He's actually inactive because he reverts back to the practice squad after the game. I imagine that they could be promoting him again, and they'll do it 3 times before they actually have to put him on the active roster. So it's just something you'll have to deal with throughout the week. Hey, this guy's not even on a roster. Oh, he is on a roster, that type of thing. But he's worthy of an ad, man, in those deep leagues where people need receivers, especially with all the injuries that happened this week. And then and with the Giants needing receiving options, with Neighbors out for the season, Darius Slayton dealing with a hamstring injury, he's worthy of a guy to pick up and say, hey, let's see if I can get some points out of him. And then the last receiver I want to talk about, Christian Watson. He's still on the PUP, but his practice window got open this past week. And with Dontavian Wicks getting banged up again, they're still needing. Like I said, I still think Watson's the best receiver they have, even over Matthew Golden. And if he can be healthy and get active, then he's worthy of an ad in any league. Tight ends, I'm looking at this week. AJ Barner for Seattle. He like I said, we talked about him last 2 weeks in our waiver ads and going into starts and sits as flex option. AJ Barner is that number 1 tight end there in Seattle. He's established that. Darnold's been playing great. Barner had a great game this past week, and he's someone I'm looking at if he's still available. Next guy, Evan Ingram. Got banged up a little bit in the beginning of the season, started real slow, has had 2 solid weeks the last 2 weeks. Aronde Gadsden, tight end for the Chargers, the rookie there. He's kind of taking over that number 1 role with Quentin Johnston out this past week. Had a really good day, had 7 for 78, I think it was, and worthy of an ad in any league. Theo Johnson. Didn't have a great week this past week, but the 2 weeks prior with Jackson Dart, he had 3 touchdowns. Tougher matchup against the Eagles with those linebackers there, and could possibly get back to being that touchdown end zone option for Jackson Dart going forward. Dalton Schultz, he's coming off a bye this past week, and possibly someone that's still out there on the waiver because somebody had to drop him for the bye week in week 6. He'll be coming off the bye now into week 7. That Houston offense is starting to play better and better. Dalton Schultz has been part of that. So somebody worthy of checking your waiver for. And then with the Mike Gesicki injury, he's going to be out for a while. Like I said, Noah Fant there in the Bengals becomes an option, especially with Flacco's tendency to throw to tight ends. He had, I think, 4 catches this week. But somebody I'm definitely interested in adding if I need to tighten in over the next few weeks, especially like Dalton Kincaid missing the game up for Buffalo. No, Dawson Knox becomes an option if Kincaid's still going to be out after the bye. But Buffalo's on a bye week this week. So if I need to add Noah Fant as a possibility, as well as this last guy, Michael Mayer. If Brock Bowers is out again, Michael Mayer was back from his concussion this week, had a really good week, and definitely worthy of a short-term add for somebody looking for a bye week injury filler. So kickers, 3 kickers I want to talk about. Michael Badgley for the Colts, filling in for the Spencer Schrader. Came out, had a decent day. And the Colts had the number 1 kicker in the league when Schrader went down, which means he was getting plenty of opportunities. Michael Badgley now takes over that opportunity, and someone I'm looking to add as a kicker. Will Reichard coming off the bye. Minnesota was on their bye last week. Will Reichard's one of the best kickers in the NFL that nobody talks about, and he's someone worthy of adding if somebody had to drop him last week. And then Nick Folk for the Jets. I know we're not expecting him to get as many opportunities, especially if Garrett Wilson's out, but Nick Folk's got a couple good matchups the next 2 weeks, like I talked about, with Carolina and Cincinnati. Defenses that I'm not truly scared of from, and could definitely still get the Jets an opportunity in a position to kick field goals with Breece Hall and Justin Fields and the handful of Mason Taylors, Josh Reynolds. Mason Taylor's another guy in tight ends you would add to. Like I said, didn't have a great week this week, but he had been coming on the last 2 weeks prior, and that was one of the other tight ends I forgot to write down here. And then defenses I'm looking to add, Chicago, they are already had their bye, and so you don't have to worry about that for the rest of the season. And they got a handful of good matchups over the next 6-7 weeks for that defense if it could continue to get the turnovers like it did against the Commanders. Atlanta's defense, you've seen how they played against the Bills. Not dominant, but definitely effective. And they're only going to get better. Those rookies that they got are only going to get better over the course of the season. And Atlanta's got a defense that's worthy of an add, especially with their matchups coming over the next few weeks. Minnesota coming off a bye. I'm not as super excited about their schedule, but I still like Minnesota's defense. And coming off a bye, a lot of people dropped them. If they needed a bye week filler or whatever defense, maybe you're the person that got the waiver in to get them back up. Maybe you got a waiver above the person that dropped them. And they're definitely still worthy of an add. And then the last one, Buffalo going on a bye this week, could be a team that gets dropped, especially after their performance against the Falcons. But what you got to keep in mind is they're getting 2 defensive tackles back from suspension that they signed in the offseason, Michael Hoyt, and then, I forget the other guy's name right now, but they're getting 2 more defensive linemen back to add to that defensive front, which has been the problem of getting ran on, and which sets up play action, which gets those safeties to creep up, then you hit them over the top. If that defensive line can improve their run defense, which I expect with these 2 defensive tackles coming back from suspension, then the Buffalo defense is going to be that much better the second half of the season after their bye. So just something to consider. A couple teams, like I said, I want to talk about. Other than that, guys, we're going to get out of here. I hope you're having a good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time you're watching. Remember to hit that comment, like, subscription button, all that good stuff. Till next time, I'm out. First down, Punts!